Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. Smartphones became ubiquitous in my country around 2014, just as I finished high school. My parents gifted me my first phone, a second-hand iPhone 4. It was outdated but functional, and I vowed to myself that one day I'd purchase a new phone with my own hard-earned money. When I started college, I had a grueling 2-hour daily commute. In high school, I had been a top performer academically and clinched several regional competitions. These accolades were being recognized during my freshman year of college. A National Credit Union award finally provided me with enough funds for a new phone. I bought an iPhone 8 and a premium SIM card, unaware that it had been discarded by its previous user. By the third day, I began receiving calls for a man named Jack from various financial institutions. It turned out the number previously belonged to him, and for the past 10 years I've continued to receive these calls. Determined to keep my premium number, I started a routine of blocking wrong numbers. Back then, blocking was device-specific, so each time I upgraded my phone, I had to start over, maintaining a list of numbers to block. I landed my first job after graduating in 2019. Around 2020, I was assigned to a new project notorious for burning people out due to a tyrannical project manager named Jake. I didn't know his full name for quite some time. He seemed to take pleasure in making our lives miserable. Jake ruled with an iron fist. From the moment his team logged into their work accounts, they were bombarded with a flurry of emails and messages, each marked as more urgent than the last. Jake thrived on creating chaos, often changing project deadlines on a whim, demanding his team work late into the night and through weekends. "I need that report on my desk by 8 a.m. tomorrow," Jake would bark over a video call at 7 p.m. "And I don't care if you have to pull an all-nighter to get it done." Jake's presence loomed over every task. He insisted on micromanaging every detail, yet was quick to take credit for any successes, no matter how small. Failures, however, were met with his notorious tirades, publicly berating his team and assigning blame without hesitation. His unpredictable temper kept everyone on edge, afraid to make the slightest mistake. Meetings were another tool in his arsenal of torment. He scheduled them during lunch breaks and after hours, ensuring no one could escape his grasp. These meetings were often pointless, serving only to reinforce his dominance and disrupt any semblance of work-life balance his team might have had. "Why isn't this done yet?" Jake would demand during these meetings, his face red with anger on the video call. "I don't pay you to sit around and twiddle your thumbs." His relentless stream of emails continued around the clock, each carrying a thinly veiled threat. Perfection or dismissal. Under his reign, morale plummeted and burnout soared. Yet Jake remained oblivious, satisfied only by his complete and total control. I was quite embarrassed when I learned that he was from the same area as I was and had attended the same school, though years before me. In 2022, our company merged with a parent company. Almost nothing changed personnel-wise, but infrastructure-wise, we got Microsoft Teams and an organization view. That was when I first learned about Jake from an organizational hierarchy perspective. His full name was an eye-opener. It was Jack. Now, the name was common enough, but at the time, mobile numbers had an area-specific pattern, so I already knew that the previous owner of my number was from the same area as me. Still, it could be someone else. I wanted to dig deeper. I reached out to an old mentor who lived in the same area and had coached several high school students for the last 2 decades. He confirmed my suspicions. I won't go into the details, but it was evident that Jack and Jake were the same person. I had been quite irritated with this unknown person named Jack for almost a decade by then, and Jake had been the bane of my, and several others' existence for quite some time. This is where the revenge lies. First, I unblocked all the numbers in my phone. I was getting 5-6 calls daily on average, but after unblocking about 150 numbers, it increased to 15 to 18. My answering strategy changed drastically. Instead of saying wrong number, I politely explained that the owner had changed his number and provided his current number to update their database. This is where I could be the AH. I also volunteered his manager's number, in case he tries something else. "Oh, I'm so sorry for the confusion," I'd say sweetly. "Jack changed his number a while back. Let me give you his current number and his manager's number too, just in case." The fallout was epic. These people had been trying to find him for almost a decade. Banks had sold his debts to companies that harass people for a living to get their money back. It turned out he had been taking loans in everyone's names, his wife, parents, uncles, aunts, and giving everyone that same number. He was evading credit card debt and loans of upwards of $300K, equivalent in USD, but it's a crapload of money where we are from. Apparently he had almost 20 cases filed against him, but no one could find him, probably why he thought he could walk on water. There are multiple versions of what happened at the office when his manager started to get calls about him. He was let go about 2 months later, haven't heard from him since. "Jake, we need to talk," I overheard his manager say during a video call. "I've been getting some interesting phone calls about you." The look on Jake's face was priceless. For once, he was the one squirming uncomfortably in his seat. The next one is an entitled people's story. Let me tell you about the time my condo association thought they could pull a fast one on me. Big mistake, huge. I'm a property lawyer by trade, so I know my rights when it comes to real estate. That knowledge came in pretty handy when I found myself going toe-to-toe with the most entitled homeowner association board you could imagine. It all started on a Friday afternoon. I'd just gotten home from a long day at the office, looking forward to a relaxing weekend. As I pulled into my parking spot, something seemed off. At first, I couldn't put my finger on it, then it hit me. My condo looked different. The exterior walls, which had been a soft cream color that morning, were now a garish shade of lime green. I blinked, wondering if the stress from work was making me hallucinate. Nope. My entire building had been repainted without any notice, and let me tell you, this green was so bright it could probably be seen from space. Furious, I stormed up to my unit, noticing that even my front door had been slathered in this eye-searing color. Inside, I found a flyer slipped under my door. "Notice to all residents, exterior painting is complete. We hope you enjoy the fresh new look of our community. Remember, homeowner association fees are due on the 1st. Oh, hell no, they were not getting a cent from me for this disaster. See, here's the kicker. I'm not even a member of their precious homeowner association. When I bought my condo 5 years ago, I made damn sure to get a unit that wasn't part of the association. I wanted control over my own property without some busybody board telling me what color my curtains could be. I knew I had to nip this in the bud fast. So I fired off an email to the homeowner association president CCing the entire board. To whom it may concern, I am writing regarding the unauthorized painting of my condo unit at 123 Main Street, Unit 4B. As you are aware, I am not a member of your homeowners association. You had no right or authority to alter my property without my express consent. I demand that you restore my unit to its original color within 7 days at your own expense. Failure to do so will result in legal action. Sincerely, John Smith, Esquire. I hit send and waited. It didn't take long for a response to come through. Dear Mr. Smith, we apologize for any confusion. As part of our community beautification project, all units were included in the repainting. Your homeowner association fees cover the cost of this improvement. We're sure you'll agree the new color scheme greatly enhances our property values. Best regards, Karen Johnson, Homeowner Association President. I had to laugh. Did this lady really think she could just claim I was part of the homeowner association because she said so? Time to lay down the law. I fired back. Ms. Johnson, there is no confusion. I am not, nor have I ever been, a member of your homeowner association. I do not pay homeowner association fees. You have no authority over my property. Restore my unit to its original condition within 7 days, or I will be forced to take legal action to protect my property rights. John Smith, Esquire. This time, the reply came even faster. Mr. Smith, all units in this development are part of the homeowner association. It's in the bylaws. We've allowed you to skip meetings and avoid fees as a courtesy, but make no mistake, you are a member and subject to our rules. The painting stays. Pay your back fees immediately or face fines and possible liens. Karen Johnson, Homeowner Association President. Oh, it was on now. This delusional woman thought she could retroactively force me into her little fiefdom. Not happening. I dug out my property records indeed, then spent my weekend preparing a little surprise for Ms. Karen and her band of busybodies. Monday morning, bright and early, I marched into the management office with a thick folder under my arm. The receptionist looked startled to see me. I need to speak with Karen Johnson and the Homeowner Association Board immediately, I said firmly. Do you have an appointment? She stammered. I flashed my bar association card. I don't need one. Tell them John Smith from Unit 4B is here regarding an urgent legal matter. A few minutes later, I was ushered into a conference room where Karen and 3 other board members sat looking nervous. Karen tried to paste on a smile. Mr. Smith, what seems to be the problem? I thought we cleared everything up in our emails. I sat down and spread out my documents on the table. Actually, Karen, you've created quite a big problem for yourselves. Let me lay it out for you. Over the next hour, I methodically went through every scrap of evidence proving I was not part of their homeowner association. The original property listing excluding homeowner association membership, my purchase contract and deed clearly stating the unit was not subject to any homeowner association, records of property tax payments showing I paid more than homeowner association units due to not receiving their services. Furthermore, I continued, I have here sworn affidavits from the previous owner and the real estate agents involved in my purchase, all confirming that homeowner association membership was explicitly excluded from the sale of my unit. The board members were looking pretty pale at this point. I pressed on. By painting my unit without consent, you have committed willful destruction of property. Your subsequent attempts to coerce me into your homeowner association and extort fees from me constitute harassment and fraud. I paused to let that sink in. Karen finally found her voice. But the bylaws say all units must be members. You can't just opt out. I smiled. Actually, I can, and I did. My unit was carved out as a legal exception before you all even formed your homeowner association. Previous boards understood and respected that. You, however, decided to overstep your authority. Big mistake. I pulled out one last document. This is a draft of the lawsuit I'm prepared to file this afternoon. Destruction of property, harassment, attempted fraud, infliction of emotional distress. I could go on, but I'm willing to settle this out of court if you meet my demands. The board members looked ready to pass out. What are your demands? One of them squeaked. I laid out my terms. Restore my unit to its original color within 72 hours. Written admission that I am not and have never been part of the homeowner association. $10,000 in damages for the stress and inconvenience caused. A legally binding agreement to never attempt to include my unit in homeowner association activities again. If these terms are not met, I concluded, I'll see you in court. And trust me, you don't want that. I do this for a living, remember? They huddled together, whispering frantically. Finally, Karen turned to me with a sickly smile. We accept your terms, Mr. Smith. The painters will be here first thing tomorrow. I nodded and gathered my papers. Glad we could reach an understanding. I'll have my paralegal send over the agreement for you all to sign. Oh, and Karen, next time you want to play dictator, make sure you know who you're dealing with first. With that parting shot, I walked out, leaving them to stew in their defeat. True to their word, my condo was back to its original color within 2 days. The signed agreement and a check for $10,000 arrived shortly after. Word of my victory spread quickly through the complex. Soon, other owners were approaching me for advice on standing up to homeowner association overreach. Turns out, quite a few people were fed up with Karen's regime. These days, the homeowner association board gives my unit a wide berth. No more surprise paint jobs or pushy notes about fictional fees. And every time I pull into my parking spot, I smile at my perfectly cream-colored walls. A daily reminder that sometimes knowledge really is power. So remember, folks, always know your rights as a property owner. You never know when you might need to put an overzealous homeowner association in its place. The next one is a petty revenge story. A pretty senior global functional head role. After tracking him down, I set up a video call with a potential candidate. He was located in a different country but was the same nationality as me. After a pleasant enough opening 10 minutes, he started laying down the law. I expect a significantly larger remuneration package, and I expect your client to pay for me to in full relocate, etc., etc. I decided this wasn't the person that was going to be moving forward for the role for which I was recruiting, not least because he had done zero research on my client, always a really bad sign. I wanted to show enough professional respect and stuck on the call for another 15 minutes. He took this opportunity to bury himself deeper into my bad books. He then rambled on about having back-to-back video calls all day and that he was glad I was his last call. It was then that I told him, "Look, you seem to be a pretty talented person, but I'm not taking you forward for this role. I have a number of equally well-qualified candidates who are taking this role more seriously, so I can't risk putting you in front of my client when your motivation seems to be focused on remuneration, rather than an opportunity with a great company." He was crestfallen. I think he realized that he was cocky and had overplayed his hand and mucked it up. He started backtracking, trying to be a little bit more humble, but I pulled him up with my petty revenge. I said to him, "I can see what you're doing here and I understand, but it's too late at this point. Sorry. Also, if I'm your last call today, I certainly hope you at least had underpants on for all your previous calls. I went on to tell him that his camera was angled towards a mirror in his hotel room. Although he was wearing a business shirt which covered his backside, when he leant forward you could clearly see he was wearing no underpants or trousers. He quickly apologized and disconnected, then emailed me another very groveling apology days later, which I graciously accepted. That was about a year ago, and I have not heard a thing from him since. I've never shared his name with anyone else, I would never do that. Nevertheless, I suspect he was a damn sight more humble after that call than when he started at. Arrogant twat. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Backstory. This happened almost 10 years ago. I was looking for a change from my first job. My first company had a great WFH policy, so I was looking for an opportunity with a similar WFH policy. Story. Back in 2014 to 15, I was looking for a job. 5 years had passed in my first job, and I was looking for a better opportunity. At the time, I was working as a Java developer at a company that is known as a telecom service provider. I was finding several opportunities, but none had a good WFH policy, and I had grown quite accustomed to the policy my first company had. This was years before COVID normalized WFH, and it was hard to find a good WFH policy at most companies. Eventually, I had to forego of my requirements. I was about to join a company and I asked the HR about WFH and received the most strict response that I had received of all the companies before. It is a strictly WFO opportunity. The pay was really good, almost twice what I was making, so I tried my best to look at that bright side. I also asked HR to add this strictly WFO only in my contract. Thinking they have got the better of me, they oblige. This additional clause would later lead me to the MC in question. After joining and getting inducted into the project team, I found out that the team was short at least 4 people. Due to this, everyone was overworked, and people were working 60-70 hours weeks while getting no OT. I was the only one with my area of expertise, and I was taken as a replacement of someone who was about to leave. Beginning of the second week, and there is a meeting where the domain lead comes up and congratulates the team regarding their latest success. Explains how the project has made the company a hefty profit and how we are going to get a pizza party soon. I realize right then and there the toxic culture the company has, where people overworking without additional pay or promotion bonus when it makes the company money. I make sure to get a locker at the office and start leaving my laptop at the office locker at the end of the day. For the first 3 weeks, this poses no problem as I'm getting training, knowledge transfer. Once my training is completed and the person training me leaves, I get my first batch of work. The work volume will easily take 80 hours. That's 2 business weeks. I am given 6 days to complete it. I work at my normal pace. At the end of the 6th day, lead asks me for the delivery of my part, and I say that I am only 60% done and it will take me another 4 days to complete. Apparently that's not going to cut it, and I am pulled into a meeting with the project manager. He wants to know what the problem is. I tell him, this requires 80 hours. I have done about 6 days of work, which is 48 hours. I need additional 4 days. He says, and I quote, work at home, that's why you have a laptop that you can take home. QMC. I politely apologize and say that I am unable to do so as my contract says that I am prohibited to work from home. Manager is not convinced. He schedules a new meeting the next day with me and HR to go through my contract. There it is, in black and white. Working from office only, working from home not permitted. I mentioned that I had tried my best to get WFH before joining and was vehemently denied the opportunity to. Manager is at a loss of words. HR is also dumbfounded. Long story short, for the next 8 months I worked at my normal pace. During end-of-year salary review discussion, I am given the opportunity to work from home. I asked them to add OT clause that would pay me additional for every hour worked after 8 hours every day. They disagreed. I disagreed to take WFH. Every other teammate refused WFH in their salary review and asked for OT clause as well. We stopped getting pizza parties. The next one is an entitled people's story. About 8 years ago, my nan was told that she needed to spend money. In a 3-year cycle, she would give each of her children £3,000 in turn. When it came to give my mum the money, she said that she didn't need all of it, so gave me and my brother £1,000 each, keeping the other for herself. I thanked her profusely and said that it wouldn't go to waste as I'd been planning on doing some work to my house. I then told my ex-wife, who was the occupier of my house. This turned out to be the second biggest mistake of my life. We agreed that I'd buy the materials and any of the tools that we needed, while her and her husband did the work. I spent the first £500 very easily on paint, wallpaper, flooring, and so on. Then there were little purchases, screws and fixings, new main sockets, and so on. I paid out for a small multimeter as mine died, and I was suddenly left with £220. The work progressed and no more demands on my money were made, so I used it on myself. Naturally, a week later, I was asked to buy some flagstones for a new patio. I told her that all the money was gone. She went ballistic. How could I have spent all the money? Where did it go? She wanted to see the itemized receipts. I promised her. We had an agreement. I shrugged it off and simply told her that I had spent some on myself. Again, mistake on my part. How dare I spend her money? I now owed her £200 and she was going to get it back. Almost daily, I'd get a text from her asking when I would transfer the money. The day before payday, I'd get a reminder from her that I owed her £200. Each time I dropped the kids off or collected them, I'd be reminded. After about 6 months, these became simple reminders on payday, and after about a year, they had tailed off completely, until about a year and a half after Mum gave me the money, when she held a BBQ. I arrived for the BBQ and her parents, her siblings, and a couple of her friends were there. We were all sociable enough until someone mentioned how nice the garden looked. She said, "Yeah, but it's not finished as me still owes us £200 from over a year ago. We're relying on that to finish things off." Her husband also chipped in, "He's not even done any of the work." All eyes were on me now, disapproving thoughts running through their heads. I sighed, then decided to end this once and for all. "I owe you £200, do I? £200 out of that £1,000, out of that £1,000 that my mother gave me. Listen to yourself for a moment, please. I was gifted £1,000 and decided to help you. I spent £800 on this house that you live in, and now you want more. You're either greedy, entitled, or delusional." I put down the drink, turned round, and left. I'd have loved to have been a fly on the wall after that, because strangely it's not been mentioned since. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.